Aleta, you are spitting up and being very cranky right now. Welcome to having a newborn, even though she is now 1 month old, and it's taken me that long to get this video, number one, recorded, and number two, having the energy to even want to film. Thank you for joining me in my pregnancy journey with our first baby, Aleta Lily DeMesquita. And today I'm going to talk about her birth story. Those of you who've been following probably figured out I wanted to have a natural birth. Throughout the pregnancy, I didn't really have any complications until it was the ultrasound at week 32 that we found out that she was breech. So from that point on, my whole focus was getting her to turn heads down, which is the optimal position for having a baby. You can still have a vaginal birth breech. However, I didn't know this when I signed my midwife, but she was not certified to do a breech birth at home, which is what I was choosing to do, was to have a home birth. So I was doing everything in my power, doing inversions, doing all the spinning baby techniques, going to the chiropractor that was Webster certified. I had a Maya abdominal massage, and after that, we thought that she had turned. She was transverse for sure. And we had an ultrasound that proved that, didn't we? So by week 36, when we found another ultrasound that showed that she was still breech, we had the conversation about a potential C-section hospital birth. So my birth story was not as planned or expected. I actually went into labor. I was 37 and a half weeks. And my water broke at home on Saturday morning. You don't want me to film right now, do you? You know, it's not always about our perfect timing, but it was Aleta's perfect timing to show up and come to us in this world, right? So 6:30 a.m. Saturday morning. So I was standing up from peeing, and all of a sudden I just feel water dripping down my leg. I text my doula, and she's like, okay, lay back in bed. I'm like, what? She's like, put a pad on, lay back in bed. Relax. I'm like, oh, great. So I knew my water broke at that point. And if you research having a birth, technically water breaking is not always the first sign. However, sometimes it is. So throughout that day, just noticing, going through the flow, no contractions. And that's when I went and got my last ultrasound, and it was confirmed she was still breech. So my midwife and I talked. We already had a hospital planned, and ultimately she's like, just let me know when you start to have contractions, text me, and then when you have contractions that are less than 10 to 15 minutes apart, call me. So my first contraction was not until 11 p.m. on Saturday night. So that's almost a full day without anything. My contractions started to speed up around 2:30 in the morning. And to be honest, I was hitting this point where I was just like uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep. I was up pretty much all night. And we decided to call the hospital, see if they had openings, if it made sense to go in for a C-section at that point or wait until the morning. They said, come on in. So we packed a bag and left and got to the hospital about 4 a.m. And this is Sunday morning. Go in. They did another ultrasound to confirm, yes, she's breech. Okay, we're scheduling a C-section. The doctor was still on site at that time, but she was switching shifts at 7, as expected. And someone comes in around 6 to tell us they can do a 9:30 C-section. About 7:30, someone else comes in and they said the anesthesiologist cannot do C-section at 9:30, so we're going to have to hold off. And David was like, well, does that mean an hour or several hours? And they'd be like, several hours. So at that point, we've been at the hospital since 4 a.m., no sleep, and it was one of those instances where, we could just wait it out patiently or start to get antsy, and I did my best to just be patient. They gave me some fluids to help settle the contractions, which actually did help a lot. And when they checked, I was only dilated 1 centimeter as well. It wasn't until 10:30 that a nurse came in and said that they were going to get us in at 2:30 or at 2 o'clock. And by that point, I was like, okay, sounds good. So waiting it out, about 1:30, they started prepping me. We go back. I honestly have never researched a C-section. I didn't know what to expect. Luckily, I had a really good doctor, Dr. Stacy Pereira, and she's from Brazil. So I told her, like, I do bikini competitions. Can you have a lower incision for me? And she's like, oh, I got you, girl. I'm from Brazil. I know exactly what you're talking about. So she explains everything. We talk about holding off on doing antibiotics until after Aleta is out of me and the cord is clamping, which I did want to delay cord clamping, but being in the hospital, they will only delay it up to, I believe, 1.5 minutes, which is still better than none, so that she can get some nutrients back into her. And we go back. The one thing that I was not prepared for is getting the spinal epidural. Having both of my legs numb, I almost had an anxiety attack. And then when they lay you down, it's almost like a crucifix because they spread your arms out and they strap you down. I had asked ahead of time, I'm like, can I bring headphones and music? Because I do get anxiety. And they allowed me to. Thank God. Otherwise, I probably would have freaked out. My blood pressure did start to drop. So they had to monitor that during the procedure. And I also didn't know with a epidural, you can sometimes have these like spasms, uncontrollable shaking. And I had that. I was cold and I was shaking. I thought it was because I was cold. And I found out later from a girlfriend that was actually from the epidural. So that was an experience. But at 2:33, Aleta was born. I touched her and David held her almost immediately. So that was reassuring. Even though I could feel like pulling and tugging, I was just in my head, I'm like remembering that this is for her. It's not about me. And this is her grand entrance. I actually had tears when I first saw her because it's so surreal, like going through pregnancy for 9 months and witnessing this baby coming out of you. Like, I didn't even know what she was going to look like. She actually opened her eyes almost immediately. She was very alert, just like heartwarming experience. So the rest of it was pretty low climatic event. My goal was to get out of the hospital as soon as possible. I was actually standing less than 24 hours after the C-section, trying to move around. The biggest issue I had was I had some gas, and they will not discharge you if you do not pass gas after having the stool softener. So we were basically there from Sunday through Monday night at 7 p.m. So I actually got discharged early. Aleta was perfect, everything flying colors, and I was doing good enough, and they discharged us. After we got home, this is where things got interesting. So we had some family who was already in town, which was super convenient, and they came over to help us out. But on Wednesday night, I started to feel like itchy around my underwear and my abdomen, and noticed that I was a little bit red. And I thought it was because of a higher dose of ibuprofen, which I'm not used to. I don't really take any medications. Lo and behold, we contacted our doctor, and it turned out I had strep. And luckily, I didn't have a temperature or anything. I'm glad we caught it when we did. I was able to get some antibiotics scripted to me, and we knocked it out within 4 hours, or else I would have had to go to the emergency room, which was not on the plan either. So thank God for having good resources and ultimately body awareness to know like something was not right. And so I think the biggest thing for me so far going through my first birth experience is once again surrendering, allowing life to unfold as it's going to, and things are just going to happen the way that they're supposed to happen. And all we can do is just have a response, but making sure that we are well thought in our actions. You don't need to be erratic and stressed. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of thought or intuition, and you just go with the flow. So far, Aleta's doing really well. We have a great pediatrician that we like so far, and she's growing very fast. When she was born, she was 6 pounds, 7 ounces. And at her 2-week checkup, she was 8 pounds and 2 ounces. So she's grown like a little weed. I'm really excited that I'm able to produce breast milk, having implants. And I'm going to make a whole separate video on that because I've had several questions concerning that. But also just like my body recuperating after pregnancy so far has been really good. I've definitely had to rest more than I thought I would, but I am almost to the 5-week marker, which some women can start working out at 5 weeks. So I've been doing walks. I have no more abdominal pain. My incision looks really good. I still do have the glue on my incision, which some C-sections they'll do glue, other ones they might do staples. Luckily, all of my incisions are going to self-absorb and then the glue is going to fall off. She's starting to show her personality more and more every day, and that's been really fun for us. And David's been very present as well, which I wasn't 100% sure how he would be because of our business right now. This is our busiest time of year when it comes to the business for coaching, but things have been going really well, and we have a great support system. I've been able to take off work, but I've started working as well to help my sanity and not feeling like all I am is like a milk pump and a diaper changer. So yeah, now it's the fun part because she's starting to get more alert. We're doing the tummy time, using some contrast books to try and get her awareness improved, and not really having a routine yet. She's been really good, actually. I don't have to wake her in the middle of the night. She will wake me when she needs to nurse, and it's about every 3 to 4 hours. Really happy with how things are going so far for baby Aleta. I'm just glad I can share my experience in this journey and help some other moms or soon-to-be moms out there realize that even if things don't go as planned, the ultimate plan is for us. And the universe is going to provide us with more than what we think. And it's ultimately going to be for our best